When we think of home, we usually think of safety, a place where we can close the doors, shut out the world, and rest without fear. But history has shown us that sometimes night brings not peace, but terror. Tonight, we'll explore two of the most shocking unsolved family murders in American history: the Villisca Axe Murders of 1912 and the Keddie Murders of 1981. Two different eras, two different states, but both tell the same haunting story. A family wiped out in a single night, and a community left forever scarred. Villisca, Iowa, 1912. A small farming town of just over 2,000 people, where everyone knows everyone. Life was simple, predictable, and above all, safe. That illusion shattered forever on the morning of June 10th. Josiah Joe Moore was a respected businessman in town and a devoted husband to his wife, Sarah, and father to their 4 children: Herman, 11, Catherine, 10, Boyd, 7, and Paul, 5. That Sunday night, the Moore family hosted a church event. Afterwards, 2 young neighbors, Ina and Lena Stillinger, were invited to spend the night at the Moore home. 8 people went to bed in the Moore household that night. None of them would ever wake up again. On the morning of June 10th, a neighbor noticed the house was strangely quiet. The shades were still drawn, and the chores the Moore children usually did at dawn hadn't even been started. Concerned, she entered the home. What she found has haunted Villisca forever. Every single person inside the house had been bludgeoned to death with an axe. The faces of Josiah and Sarah Moore were so brutally struck that they were beyond recognition. The children, too, were savagely attacked. The Stillinger girls, guests in the home, were found in the spare bedroom. Curtains had been drawn, mirrors covered with cloth, and every victim's head was covered with bedclothes, as though the killer couldn't bear to look at what they'd done. The crime scene was utter chaos. Townspeople flooded in and out of the home, contaminating what little evidence there was. Police quickly suspected Frank Jones, a wealthy local businessman who had feuded with Josiah Moore for years. Others believed that the killer was a transient who hopped off the nearby train that night. A traveling preacher even confessed before recanting his confession. Theories were endless, but evidence was scarce. Trials were held, but no one was ever convicted. The Moore house still stands today and is known as one of the most haunted houses in America. But behind the ghost stories lies a brutal truth. A family destroyed in their beds. A crime that has gone unsolved for over a century. It's the 11th of April, 1981. A quiet mountain cabin in Keddie, California should have been a safe haven for the family who lived inside. But when neighbors checked in, they found the unimaginable. 4 people brutally murdered in their own home. Blood, terror, and unanswered questions filled the cabin that night. And decades later, the case remains one of California's most chilling, unsolved mysteries. Keddie, California, was a small, quiet resort town nestled in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Cabin 28 was rented by 36-year-old Glenna Sue Sharp, a single mother raising 5 children. On the night of the 11th of April, Sue was home with her teenage son, John, his friend Dana Wingate, and her 12-year-old daughter, Tina. By morning, the cabin would be one of the most infamous crime scenes in California history. Sue had moved her children to Keddie just a year earlier to give them a fresh start. She was known as kind, hard-working, and fiercely protective of her children. John, 15, was a bright, popular teenager, while his friend Dana, also 15, was often at the Sharps' home. Tina was shy, gentle, and still very much a child at just 12 years old. On the morning of April 12th, 14-year-old Sheila Sharp returned home from a sleepover. What she found inside cabin 28 was a nightmare. Her mother, Sue, brother John, and his friend Dana were bound, beaten, and stabbed to death in the living room. The walls and furniture were splattered with blood, showing a violent struggle had taken place. But Tina, Sue's youngest daughter, was missing. For 3 long years, Tina's whereabouts remained a mystery. Then, in 1984, a fragment of her skull was found in a remote area miles away from Keddie. She too had been murdered. Despite the brutality of the crime, the investigation was plagued with mistakes. Potential suspects included neighbors and acquaintances who were known to the family, but evidence was never processed correctly. Years later, new leads emerged, rumors of multiple attackers, of a cover-up, even of police corruption. Some believed the killers were known to Sue, and that the murders were deliberate. But, like Villisca, no one was ever charged. Cabin 28 was eventually torn down, but the case remains cold. Generations later, true crime researchers and local law enforcement are still asking, who killed the Sharp family, and why? The Villisca Axe Murders and the Keddie Cabin Murders happened nearly 70 years apart, yet they share haunting similarities. Both struck families in the dead of the night. Both left multiple victims, including children, and in both cases, the killers vanished into history, never to face justice. 2 families, 2 homes turned into crime scenes, and 2 questions that remain unanswered. Who was behind these massacres, and how did they get away with it?